that is less than a minute.
Okay.
Welcome to Anselmo Academy of Music and the Arts, and we are sending you greetings from New York City. Today, we present a remarkable artist, pianist, arranger, composer, Matt Herskowitz. Matt, welcome to our broadcast, and thanks
Thank
so
you.
much for joining us. Yes, please say a quick
Great
hello.
to be here.
Yes, likewise. We're honored to have you here. As a matter of fact, I even wrote down a quick note to myself. I just now thought of Oscar Peterson as I heard you play
Oh, yeah.
this arrangement. Absolutely. I don't know what it is. Something crossed in my brain. Oscar Peterson being from Montreal and playing beautifully in similar way, in my view, to your playing, that sense of joy that you
Yeah.
have
All right.
when
Yeah.
you play, and it's really contagious. So really outstanding. So thanks so
Thank you.
much for joining us. We'll be meeting Matt up close shortly. First, we have a couple of announcements from Anselmo Academy. Our fall semester registration is open for private lessons. The semester for private lessons begins right after Labor Day. And if you have more information, would like to contact us, please visit anselmoacademy.org. We are a non-profit 501c3 organization established in 2001. So we will be in our 24th school year starting this September. And we specialize in group class programs that we organize at local schools, community centers, mostly after school programs, where we present general music type programs from small groups to large groups, and provide instruction in piano, violin, guitar, voice, and much more. And if you know of a program of a school that doesn't have a music and arts kind of programming and classes for the students, please reach out. Please subscribe to our social media channels and also to our two e-newsletters that you can find at anselmoacademy.org. And besides the obviously updates from the Academy, we also list in our newsletters information on broadcasts and with guest artists, just like we have today, so you can stay up to date with everything that's coming up. And we hope that you enjoy our program today. Can we have, please, Matt, a picture on the screen as I go through his bio? Wonderful, thank you. As I have mentioned, Matt is a amazing pianist, composer, arranger, and his key feature, I would say, is that he established a platform where he combines the skill of a brilliant classical pianist with the innovative talent that he and talent skills that he has in jazz, world music, and free improvisation. Over the course of the last decade, he produced a series of critically acclaimed recordings, premiered his works in settings from New York Central Park to Germany's Cologne Philharmonic, collaborated with top classical, jazz, and pop artists, and has performed at music festivals across the globe. He is a graduate of the Juilliard School and the Curtis Institute of Music. And while he's originally from Rensselaerville, hold on,
Rensselaerville.
let me try it again.
Mhm.
Rensselaerville, something like that. You can correct me later, which is upstate New York. He's made Montreal his home since 1999. A classical pianist for over 20 years, Matt's interest in jazz began while studying at the Curtis Institute in Philadelphia, where he apprenticed, as he called it, with seasoned jazz musicians performing in bars and jazz clubs. Then, upon moving to Montreal, he decided to focus on jazz with detour into pop music and perform with celebrated pop artist Lara Fabian. His focus soon shifted to his own compositions, combining his experience in jazz, pop, and world music. But his love for classical music never left him. And in 2013, he began making arrangements of Bach, Schumann, Chopin in a variety of jazz styles, all while retaining the integrity of the original pieces, something uniquely suited to him as being equally versed in both genres. Matt's latest solo project, Chopin Etude and Jazz, features his exciting new vision of Chopin's great works, weaving jazz, language, and improvisation into the original music. This project was filmed during a concert at Zal Bourget in Montreal last year and is now available on Medici TV. He has two other projects currently on Medici TV, one being Gershwin's World with Montreal Symphony principal trumpeter Paul Marcello, featuring Matt's original arrangements of works by Gershwin, Ravel, Stravinsky, and Schoenberg. And a second album is called A Journey Through North American Jazz and Folk with world-renowned violinist Lara St. John, featuring arrangements of jazz tunes by Joplin, Jerry Morton, Art Tatum, George Gershwin, and Oliver Jones, as well as Matt and Lara's arrangements of classic American and Acadian folk tunes. Matt will be recording an album of his new revised version of Etudes and Jazz in the fall of 2024 for Network Music Group. And this recording will feature some new etudes as well as new expanded versions of several existing arrangements. Matt's solo jazz album release, Mirror Image, from 2019, is a unique and personal exploration, reconciliation of his classical and jazz alter egos with pieces by Ravel, Satie, Schubert, and Gottschalk, as well as several original compositions. This album has been already received wide critical acclaim and is consistently ranked and favorite among progressive jazz stations in US and in Canada. Then in 2012, his release of Matt Herskowitz Upstairs, and Justin Tune in 2012, was featured in Downbeat magazine editor pick. And another album called Jerusalem Trilogy, also on Just in Time 2010, was also critically acclaimed, Juno-nominated World Music Fusion. And this album features original compositions and arrangements in Matt's signature synthesis of contemporary jazz and classic styles combined with a blend of Arab and Jewish grooves. Among the album's fans was the late great Dave Brubeck, who commended Matt on the recording, saying, "Congratulations, you have transformed the concept of world music as I conceived of it half a century ago. You have carried it further than I could imagine." In 2017, Matt was featured on BBC show Music Matters, Spirit of Bach, to discuss his innovative arrangements of Bach, which can be heard on his album Bach 21 on Avanti Classic 2015 and Bach Reimagined on In Your Records 2018. In 2009, Matt premiered his piano concerto Undertow with Absolute Ensemble, a cross-genre chamber orchestra that commissioned the work at the Köln Philharmonie in Cologne, Germany, in a concert broadcast on WDR German television across Europe. And in 2007, he had a solo release called Matt Herskowitz plays George Gershwin, featuring original solo arrangements of his, and the Concerto in F, Cuban Overture, and Rhapsody in Blue. And that album was nominated for Quebec prestigious Prix Opus and has received accolades from jazz and classical critics alike. In addition to his hugely popular Bach a la Jazz, which he arranged and performed for the animated film The Triplets of Belleville, Matt and his trio were featured on Barry Manilow's In the Swing of Christmas, which was nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Traditional Pop Album. Wonderful. Congratulations, Matt, on such incredible journey. Next, we're going to play an excerpt of Matt arrangement of Preambulum from Bach Partita in G.
Oh, yeah.
Take a listen. we're moving on to a dialogue portion of our program, and I have some questions for Matt, and
Okay.
he's going to share his insights on his journey. So first question, what does being a professional musician mean to you, and what is your message to the world?
Okay. A professional musician. Well, besides the literal definition of like being able to make a living from making music, to me, being a professional musician means knowing your own voice, and being able to effectively communicate that to an audience through your music. They have to know who you are. They have to hear it. They have to feel it. And, whether it's in playing classical repertoire, jazz, free improvisation, or, arrangements, everything has to have your voice and your color. Otherwise, I think the point of being, professional and people paying to hear you is lost, um, even if you play exactly like Vladimir Horowitz, what's the point of doing that? So some people call it being original. Everyone's original, you know. We do this because we want to communicate something and because we have something to say, and that just must be personal above all. And I think professional musician has to have that. And of course, the best ones do. In my case, I do this through, classical, jazz, free improvisation, and arrangements. That most recently in arranging classical pieces through my own kind of hybrid of classical jazz, harmony, rhythm, groove, and structure. So it's a true integration. Starting out classical and then switching to jazz, and then getting back into classical and combining the two led to an integrated fusion of which I can't point to something and say, yeah, that's more jazz or that's more classical, and that's what I want. This has led to ambiguity in terms of labels. The music industry up until now didn't really like ambiguity in labels. They want you to pick one, so I really couldn't pick one. So I created, when I did classical, I really missed jazz. And when I did only jazz for several years, I missed classical. So now I'm happy. And fortunately, I found a record label that is excited about, not only doesn't, mind it, but is excited about this ambiguity of, what do you call it? And that's great. So they let me do things from the free improvisations I record in my studio. I just sit down and a little bit inspired by the Russian tradition of like, okay, what's an image that I want to project? If someone is sitting around at home, or perhaps they're in class, but they want to be somewhere else. Where do they want to be? And
that would be me.
Yes. So where do I want to be? And so I try to communicate that. The idea of those improvisations is more for streaming services. So you really can't do that through virtuosity, So you do that through what I call pure musicianship, making the most of essentially tonal music that's not virtuosic. A little bit like a soundtrack. It's the soundtrack to whatever you imagine, these improvisations. So of course, one of my big inspiration and heroes in this is Keith Jarrett, who was the father of this. And then they also recording my Chopin jazz etudes, as you mentioned, and there is the place for the virtuosity. and the craziness and all the things I can't do in the improv, I get to show there. So I feel lucky that in a world where everybody specializes in one thing, and those who do it really well, like they do it really well. We have some of the best classical pianists out now. We have some of the best, most interesting jazz pianists out now. We have some of the best composers and arrangers out. And I get to do all of it with Network, which is, I find myself incredibly fortunate for that. Uh,
I really love all your choices. I've listened to quite a bit of your arrangements in the last few days, and everything sounds so, so good. And I know very
Thank
little
you.
about jazz. Just through listening, I never studied jazz, but to me, as a classical musician, it just sounds great. From your timing and choices of style that you
Well,
decide to incorporate to everything. It just really sounds wonderful.
thank you. Well, that's
So
it.
yeah,
You get it.
yeah,
That's all. That's all. That's
yeah.
exactly what I'm trying to communicate. Is this, and no expertise required. You know,
Mhm.
no,
Yeah,
absolutely not. You shouldn't need to know anything to
mhm.
enjoy any kind of music. You know,
Yeah.
and that you can describe it and define it means that you obviously know you are a musician.
Yeah, just through listening mostly,
No.
and yeah, I do have good taste, so here you go.
I like to think so.
Yes. My next question. So, tell us a little bit your story. You shared a little bit with me before we started live. So repeat some of that, please. Tell us your
Sure.
story of becoming who you are today, and who among your teachers or just musicians in general was most influential in creating the musician in you. Go ahead.
Okay. So I started out as a classical pianist um, who composed, like I've always composed, almost from the same time I started playing classical. And I was really fortunate to have a very inspiring teacher in Albany, New York, where I grew up. His name was Finley Cockrell. He was the head of the piano department at SUNY Albany, State University of New York at Albany. And as a kid, like I would go there for lessons with him, and yeah, he always challenged me to go further and to explore repertoire I wouldn't have necessarily discovered on my own. And I really credit him with my love and expertise and immersion in the world of Gershwin and ragtime, which led to jazz, and both of which really expanded my understanding and connection with harmony, rhythm, and stride piano technique, which I think not enough classical pianists really get that. But I'm able to do stride technique because of playing all those rags, and Gershwin songs. Stride technique was that was it. It came from that. Um, uh, and while I was studying at Curtis, that's when I started exploring jazz more seriously. And I decided, like, my roommate was a classical clarinetist at Curtis, but he moonlighted as a saxophonist, and he was really good. He was a good tenor and alto player, and I would jam with him and his buddies. One was a trumpet player, another sax player, and a bass player, and we get together like in my apartment and just jam. And they showed me a lot. Like they were pretty seasoned jazz players, and they would just show me stuff. They would give me pointers, and I would just immediately take it to heart and try to, like a little kid, and try to absorb it. I started listening all the time. I listened to. I started backwards. You're supposed to, like, if I tell my students, start with the early and go to the late. I started with the latest. Keith Jarrett, Marian McPartland's, Chick Corea, Dave McKenna, and then I went backwards, and got to Oscar Peterson, Art Tatum, Jerry Roll Morton, and um, it was a weird process, but it's for me, starting with the most advanced was a good thing because I was already there in terms of being a classical pianist and composer. I played a lot of contemporary music too. So I found that like when I got back to like Art Tatum, I really fell in love with that. Like this whole style. It's kind of I finally got sort of where jazz comes from and the soul of it going backwards. And my friends were quite impressed at how quickly I was getting this. And then I started jamming, like you said, in the bars, in the jam sessions. I did jazz vespers in Philly. They have like jazz vespers a lot, and that's sort of where that comes from a lot. And I got to jam at one of them with a very young Joey DiFrancesco, who's
Mm-hmm.
an organist. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just amazing. He was like 12 or something, and he was like, "Oh my god, this kid's gonna be famous," and then he did. And like some in Juilliard, I got to jam regularly with Chris McBride, who became one of the most famous jazz bass players of all time, and I
Mm-hmm.
got to jam with him. So like, I just was so fortunate in the the university of the streets, that I learned my jazz. And after that, jazz started becoming institutionalized in schools. And I have nothing to say about it. I don't have what some of those people have, from learning that way, but they don't have what I have, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think original voice, it may sound odd, but you get that from like listening and transcribing your favorites. That's the only way to accumulate language. And it's like linguistic language. You speak the way you speak. It's only to you, whether it's your native language or a language you learned. You have your own rhythm. You have your own sense. You have your personality comes out through how you speak. And it's the same with learning musical language. It all goes into the soup of making you who you are. Um, so anyway, did I answer the question? What was the question again?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I want to mention some of the teachers in
Oh
addition.
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. Sorry about that. So um, yeah, I mean that was so going to Curtis was a great jazz education for me. I mean, I did also get to play with great musicians, and one thing Curtis gave me a lot was contemporary music. I became like I learned very quickly that stuff, and I was the one who would play all the hindemith sonatas that nobody else would do. All the brass players were like, "Oh yeah, get that guy, he'll do it."
That's
um,
funny.
and I got to work with George Crumb and uh, who's the composer I'm trying to think of. I'm so sorry. F- I will
Well,
think of him.
you'll
I'll think of
remember
him
it. Yeah.
later. But
Yeah.
I got to work with Lucas Foss. I think it's yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
some amazing composers that, and like George Crumb was like a mystic, a mystic. It was incredible. Um, so from there, in New York, I continued jazz, and uh, after I finished Juilliard, a pianist we both know, Sergei Babayan. He recommended his old teacher to me, and it was a teacher. His name's Vladimir Viordo, and he sort of he filled in pieces for me that were missing that I didn't know were missing.
Mm.
So he completed me, and what was missing from my playing was the ability to do what I said professional musicians need to do: express yourself through your music completely. Your personality and your soul must come through, but it must come through effortlessly and it must come through clearly. And I lacked a few pieces of the puzzle to do that, just technically,
Mm.
and execution, and he gave me that.
Fabulous. Mm.
Yeah. Um, before my teachers had said that I had great technique, and my problem was that I lacked maturity as a musician. And Viardo said, "No, no, no, you're a great musician. You lack the technical means to express that." You know,
Interesting.
and it was like upside down world, right? Everything like I had taken for granted was now not only not true anymore, it was the opposite. So
Mhm.
yeah, that was great. I studied with him for 5 years, and then and so I credit him uh, as well with who I became, even though it was only classical.
Mhm.
Um, Playing music is playing music, and expressing yourself. It doesn't matter. Like there's not that big of a difference when you come right down to it. Uh, One is improvised, and one is interpretation of written music, but it's still the same in terms of expressing yourself. Like
Mhm.
the mindset should be the same, whether you're improvising or whether you're interpreting.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel anyway.
Well, your arrangements of, let's say, Chopin etudes or Bach or Prokofiev that we're gonna hear more of, um, are really, to me, is like spot on. I can't imagine it being done any other way. In
Oh,
that way, you convince me right away.
oh, fabulous.
I
Thank you.
don't think of, or maybe he should have done this or that. No, this is so bold and so clear, your intention and execution of that, of what you trying to say, is very innovative and great choices. And so
Oh,
yes, you
thank you.
definitely convinced me. So next topic, let's talk about legacy. You being in the unique platform, right? I don't know how many people do what you do. I maybe not anybody, I don't know, you tell me if you're the only one.
Am I am I the only one? It's funny. Like that reminds me of my son watching Winnie the Pooh. And Tigger. Says the best thing about Tigger is I'm the only one.
Yeah.
The desire to be unique.
Hmm.
Um, well, no, I'm not the only one.
Okay,
I'm the only one who does it in the way that I do it.
great.
But so is everyone else who does it. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but am I the only one that's crossing over? Not today, not by a long shot. I
Mm.
was, but not anymore. There are many people doing it, and maybe not to like the level of classical that I achieved. Because like I really pursued a classical career very far until I switched
Mm.
and then came back. So maybe that's a unique part of me is just how developed the classical was. But in terms of doing both, there are other people I like very much who are
Mm.
doing it. Some are quite well known, some are not at all known, but you can find them if you look.
Yeah. So in like 50 years, talking about legacy, what do you want to be remembered by the most?
Um, well, I kind of feel that in terms of legacy, I've already I've already got a legacy that I'm proud of, and what I really want to do is expand it. Is
Mhm.
just um, I mean, uh, I've got audio recordings, videos, compositions, arrangements, pop songs. You know, there's a lot of recorded material. There's a lot of original compositions that are out in the world, and I'm hoping to continue with that. Like the Jazz Etudes is my next project that I want to get out into the world. There's, after kind of fighting to get this going, there's now an interest in it. Um, I'm going to do Bach after that, solo Bach, and I've got the two trio albums with
Yeah.
flute and one with violin.
Mm.
But solo one, and I really want to do an album of my compositions,
Mm.
chamber works and solo and chamber works. That's what
Mm.
I'd love to do.
Mm.
Um, but I feel that the sort of the blueprint of my legacy is already at least partially fulfilled, and I feel very fortunate for that. Now I'm just like, how much can I add to my output? I have a lot more to say, and a lot more that I want to produce, and I just hope that I live long enough to get it all in. You know, that's
Yeah,
basically
fantastic.
what legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh yeah. Um, get back to work. You wasted too much time. Uh, Party about half as much. um,
But that's the fun part.
that's the fun part.
That's the fun part that I hear in your
Yeah,
expression,
I
actually.
know. But like
Yeah.
even half would have been more than enough. um, like young people don't realize this, but time is short and the years go by fast. And
Mm,
you think you're going to live forever and that time is just going to be like it feels now, and it's not. Like we know that it before you know it, uh, a decade has gone by and things have changed and you've changed. And I would say find the discipline to get in the daily habit of creating, of producing, of practicing, and finish projects that you started. You know, get that discipline. Um, a little bit every day. Like have a schedule where you consecrate time. Some people are morning people and they work better in the morning. Some people at night. I was a crazy night owl. I would work until all hours of the night. That worked for me for a while. And then at a certain point, it just becomes, you get too tired to do that. It's
mm,
it can't last forever.
mm,
But I also enjoyed the peace of working at night. It's very, very peaceful. Uh,
mm.
Now I do more in the morning. It's just kind of shift. I have a kid. I'm up. That's work time. You know, and try to go to bed a little earlier, and because I'm less productive now at night. But yeah, I would tell myself just get some more discipline because I wasted a lot of time not having a discipline. um, and I worked best when I was under a high pressure deadline. But and that's great. And there's a lot. It's like a joke. A lot of people need that. You need a high pressure deadline. I think it's also good to be able to work when you don't have that and to just have a work ethic and like do every day. That's like the tortoise and the hare. The tortoise is going to win. That the one who has the work ethic that keeps going and like composes or practices every day, not only when they under pressure and have to do something. That's good that I could do that. That's good that you can do that. But imagine if I also had the discipline and the structure to just write and do the same thing I did under pressure, work through blocks, work through slow moments, and just keep going and be the tortoise that gets there in the end. There'd
Yeah.
be more output. There would be. I was fortunate that I had a lot of platforms to write for, and that they gave me deadlines. That I'm grateful for, because without it, I don't think I would have written a single piece.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, procrastinate, lazy.
Of course. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Well, I found procrastination is because of certain, I guess, of uncertainty, right? In a way. To me, at least, that was, and I think it's part of everybody's youth years is
Yeah.
procrastination because you don't understand the urgency, right? So, yeah, great.
When I
Yeah.
was young, I was writing pieces just for me. Back in the single digit years, and from like a 10 through like 16. I'm writing, and maybe through 20, I'm writing like for me. And because it's exciting, and I got to compare with other composers at school. That was a great thing about being at Curtis and Juilliard, was comparing, showing pieces to your friends, and they show you their pieces. I forgot an influence. Can I go back and mention another influence?
Sure.
A composition student at Curtis at the time. His name is Darren Hagen. He studied with Ned Rorem. He was the composition teacher I needed at the time. He got me to like really be critical of my own work and to see it in an objective light and to say, how can this be better? Do you have too much packed in to a very short thing that you could actually make into a symphony? And how can you do that? Like unpack it, everything is so compressed and condensed. Open it up, let it. And that was such a great lesson for me for all styles of writing, whether I'm writing classical, contemporary, or jazz, or pop music. It was a great lesson, and I'm happy to say we reconnected recently, relatively recently, and he's a great composer. He does a lot of really great film scores, and like it's anyway, that's on that side. That was also David Diamond at Juilliard. I informally studied, and he was also very helpful.
That is great. Yeah, wonderful. Yes, we have another video to share, which is Opus 10, number 11, and you call it Infinite Arpeggios. That's Matt's arrangement of Chopin Etude. Take a listen.
Okay.
I love the fantasy that you create.
That last bit was an improv. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, like listening to Chopin etudes, I almost don't even care at the Chopin part. I look forward to when you start improvising and your
thank you.
Honestly,
yeah. Thank you. This arrangement it achieved what I wanted to. It's sort of what I want to achieve in all the arrangements, and most of them do. Some of them do a different route that I'm equally content with, but this one does kind of at the heart what I wanted to do is that the arrangements should feel so obvious, like such a natural extension of the piece, that of course you would do this, like it's obvious, like it's just perfect, it works, it's a natural extension of the piece, and it's going where it wants to go. Like that's what like it's sort of the perfect stylistic update of the etude. And um, it seems obvious, to me,
Yeah,
but for sure, not everybody would have thought of it. But it should seem like everyone
definitely.
should have thought of it. Yeah.
Yeah. As
You
if
take this.
you're asking Chopin and tell him, "Hey, have you tried this?
Yeah, have you tried?
Look
Have you
what
tried
came
taking
out."
the rolls and like going all the way up and down the piano?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like making the harmonies more progressive and more
Yeah.
dissonant and more kind of yeah. It's it's a perfect kind of 21st century lens to see uh,
Yeah.
this etude through, and
Absolutely.
that's the what I
Yeah.
wanted to accomplish in the project. Yeah.
Yes, you definitely have. Next, we have picture gallery. So as we go through each
Okay.
picture, tell a couple of words.
Okay. Okay, this is with my jazz trio from quite a while ago, 2015, 9 years ago. And this was for our album Bach Reimagined, a photo
You want
shoot.
to tell us the names of your teammates?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
I will mention that. So, what's cool about the trio is that it's three soloists and three equal members. I really like that. It's David Rosenblatt on drums and Matt Fields on bass. And Matt Fields played both acoustic and electric basses. Okay, this photo is from a live shot in gorgeous Sitka, Alaska, in their concert hall, where there's like a beautiful window panes. It's a vitre. I don't know what it is. But yeah, these beautiful window panes
Yeah.
that are open and where you can see like literally outside whales breaching the ocean and eagles flying down. It's ridiculous. It's gorgeous, and it has been sometimes inspiration. People notice I would look outside for a moment, while I'm playing. And I guess I was like really into something there and got really into the joy of something, and there it is. Somebody captured
Yeah.
that shot.
Great.
Okay, so this was from considerably earlier, as you can see, 2007, 2008. The tour, the promotional tour of the album that jazz Christmas album my trio did with Barry Manilow, in the Swing of Christmas. So there I am with Barry recording for I think it was one of the TV shows. We did Entertainment Tonight, and we did another show. I can't remember the name of it, but it's also very, very popular show. And I'll try to remember what it was. But we were recording live video for that live performance, and we had just performed a couple of Christmas tunes, and they took the shot. Okay, this is from my performance at Salle Bourgie of the Jazz Chopin Etudes that was filmed for Medici TV. This is a screenshot from that. And I selected that one myself because I was looking for a shot to represent the project. And I thought, well, that kind of represents it pretty well. It's a high energy intensity, with that energy of being in concert and the concentration that performing this takes. I recently performed for the first time in my life the new version in Sitka, Alaska. They had me back, and I was so emotionally and physically exhausted after that performance. That never happens to me in concert, but this concert just drained me. Like playing them all without a break, because they are considerably harder now.
Mm.
And here is with my son, who I believe is nearly 4 years old at this point, Raphael, my son Raphael. And he and I are having a great time at, I believe it's at a restaurant called Copper Branch, which is his favorite restaurant. It's a vegan fast food restaurant chain. Like I don't think that exists in the States, but we have one up here, Copper Branch. Yeah, so he's got the joy, and when he gets the joy, I got the joy.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We have a next video, another Chopin arrangement of Chopin Etude, Opus 10, number 2. And you pronounce how you the title. El Montuno.
El Montuno.
Which means what? Tell us.
Okay, Montuno is I'll demonstrate for you a little bit.
Okay.
This is a Montuno. This kind of thing. That's like it's a pattern that's the pianist plays, you know, thump, and the bass is often, you know. You know, the bass is doing that while you're doing. You know, this kind of thing. So that's a Cuban Montuno. It's from Cuba. And that's what the piano player plays this. And I imagine that Chopin, perhaps before he went to Mallorca, went to Havana. And while he was in his little hacienda, you know, on the street, and he's there's a street band playing beneath him, and the pianist is he's got an upright piano that he's playing a Montuno, and Chopin is just loving this groove, and he goes and talks to the pianist and finds out what it is, and he goes, I'm going to write a piece for that, and he comes up with this chromatic thing, and he puts the Montuno, and he calls it El Montuno, and I said, sadly, the piece was lost because the salon-going public of the 1830s didn't like it, and they didn't buy it, and he was threatened with excommunication by the Pope, and then he thought, okay, maybe I shouldn't do this, so he made it the simple chromatic etude known as the chromatic, and that I found this version, you know, in Paris in a wine cellar. Yeah, so yeah, none of this is true, but that's a story that I tell, you know.
I almost believe it.
Yeah, you know, it's all in how you tell it, you know. You just
it's fantastic. You're great. Yeah, you should be a storyteller as well.
Yeah, I said after I do this, I say if anyone needs a music history teacher in their school, call me.
You'll tell them everything that didn't happen. Yeah,
that's right. I'll tell you everything. Yes. Exactly. They'll learn everything that didn't happen.
Yes. Okay, let's play the video. Oops. Yep.
Raphael.
Oh. Brilliant. We have
Thanks.
one more video to share, which is
Okay.
with your trio, and it's
Yeah.
arrangement of, I believe, a Prokofiev etude. You call
Yes.
it Prokofiev Revenge. Let's
Prokofiev's Revenge. Yes.
yes, wonderful.
Thanks.
Very much for joining me today. I feel, I'm a little under the weather today, but I feel like this is the
Oh.
best hour of the at least a week
Oh, thank
that
you.
has passed. I truly enjoy meeting you. Your talent
You too. Oh,
and humor
thank
and
you.
storytelling and is just incredible. So thank you so much. We wish you all the best in your
Thank
upcoming
you.
events and recordings. And we thank everyone for watching and for supporting our initiative to feature artists like Matt. Thanks so much, everyone. So long.
Thank you.